Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of Talk Toolbox. I'm your host, Tony Tasty, and I'm joined once again by Mittens Goes Nuclear. Today we're going to talk about the number one biggest upgrade most people can make to their game right now. Tell them what it is, Mittens.
Calling Trump more often.
You're damn right it is. Now, on the last episode of Toolbox, we talked about how Euchre is miscast as a game of luck, partially because people don't take a long term view of the game. But we're not going to make that mistake. We're in it for the long haul, and we understand that on average, over a statistically significant number of games, we will see the same distribution of hands as the other three people at the table. So, in the calling phase, when there are four people looking at their hands and deciding whether or not to call, we'll have the best hand at the table exactly 1/4 or 25% of the time. And it's our job to capitalize on every one of those opportunities and more if we can. Now, I couldn't even posit a guess on how low the average player's call rate is, but I can tell you that no one at the top has a call rate below that 25% baseline. And the more you play, the more your calling rate will increase naturally as you learn to spot patterns in the game. But we're not here for that organic growth. I promised you a big upgrade to your game right now. So here's how you can increase your calling rate today in 3 steps. Number one is going to be shaking the fear of getting euchred. So I want to start by validating that fear because in most people's experience, getting euchred is equated with getting yelled at by your teammate. And the game mechanics sort of encourage that because calling it is a risk. And if you don't succeed, you get punished on the scoreboard and verbally abused by your partner. But but I want to tell you that you need to shrug that off and ignore the haters because what I've learned from playing with the best euchre players on the planet is that they don't care about you getting euchred. They're far likelier to yell at you for passing when you had X, Y, and Z. Because if we're really trying to maximize our calling potential, aggressive play is a requirement, and getting euchred is just the cost of doing business. What you should be focused on is the opportunity cost of passing. And the way I like to think of it is like this: the easiest way to get a point in euchre is to take 3 out of 5 tricks with your partner. That's the most likely outcome whenever a call is made. So when you pass and let them call, you're very likely to be giving a point to the opposing team, and you're giving up a point that you might have scored, effectively putting you down 2 points. One for the point that you didn't get, and one for the point that they did get. So, following this thought process, getting set on a 50-50 call will have the exact same net effect as passing. So, when you're looking at a marginal hand, don't think of calling as taking a risk. Think of it as denying the opposing team the ability to dictate the game. You choose how and when the points get scored, not them. Now, Mittens, have you noticed this too in your games that the biggest mistake isn't getting set, but passing when you should have called?
I'd say definitely in like more casual games. Yes. Anyone who hasn't studied the game, so like yeah, playing with friends and family, or playing with people who are more new to it. Yes, that is 100% the biggest miss in most people's play. I was uh I was watching a couple friends play euchre recently, and one of them passed a hand that I would have gone alone on. Um,
Oh, wow.
and I thought, okay, what does it take? What does it take for people to call? Because yeah, it's not always going to be. We'll get into this a little more, but it's not always going to be a net positive when you call. Sometimes calling is just better than passing, even if it's not necessarily a great call, and you lose points on average doing it, or maybe you win like a really small amount. Passing can still be worse. And so making those calls, making the better play overall over the long stretch is going to be better. And I get like the verbal verbal abuse. You see a lot of it on Euchre 3D, but Euchre is a social game, and there are perceived social consequences to screwing up, especially if you're not like really familiar with your partner.
All right. Now that we're firmly in the aggressive mindset, let's talk about how we can put it into practice responsibly. Obviously, we can't call every hand every time. some amount of hand evaluation has to take place. But the calls we can make are very limited if we're only taking our own hand into account. So that takes us to step two, which is counting on our partner for help, which seems like a dubious prospect if you've spent any amount of time playing in the lower ranks. But hear me out. We actually have agency in choosing how helpful our partner can be by considering our position at the table relative to the dealer when we have the chance to call. So if we're in seat one, the first player to the left of the dealer, we're making a call based on no information from our partner or anyone else, and we're giving one trump card to the opposing team. It's tough to expect much from our partner when we make a call from the one seat. However, if we're in seat two, the second player to the left of the dealer, that means our partner is the dealer and they gain all the benefits of that position. Calling is much more enticing from this spot as we don't need to have all three tricks in our hand to make a point. Our partner can help us with a guaranteed trump, plus the opportunity to discard and make a useful void, increasing the likelihood that they'll be able to use that trump that we ordered up to them. Now let's consider seat three. We're back to not having the dealer advantage, and we know our partner didn't have a strong enough hand to call from seat one, so it's truly going to be all on us to secure three tricks if we call from here. Our range from seat three should be very narrow, and the only help we should count on from our partner is a trump lead to help clear out trump and put us, the caller, in the lead, or at minimum, an ace lead if they don't have any trump. Now, in seat four, we're the dealer, and we'll get to call knowing that everyone else passed. It's likely no one has a strong hand in the turned up suit, so we can make a point here on some pretty marginal hands with the use of our void and the hope that our partner will have something to contribute, whether it's a lone trump card or an offsuit ace. Now, it sounds simple and obvious when I lay it out like that, but you'd be surprised how many people just don't consider their position at the table in their thought process when making a call. But knowing your position relative to the dealer will tell you how much or how little you can expect from your partner, and it allows you to open up your range from seats two and four while calling more responsibly from seats one and three. Mittens, how do you think about position when deciding whether to call or pass?
Position is really massive. I play different seats wildly differently. Seat one. In seat one, what you have, if you do decide to call it up, like you said, you don't have information, so you do need a pretty strong hand to be calling up the dealer in seat one. But you do have a slight advantage, especially if you have the right, in leading trump. So seat one, you're able to lead trump and draw out opponent's trump immediately. And therefore, you're guaranteed to waste at least the dealer's trump that you ordered up. Seat three is, calling up. You're doing the same thing as seat one, is giving a trump card to the dealer, but you do not have the lead. And when you don't have the lead, calling up trump to the opponent who gets to short suit themselves, you need a really, 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 really strong hand. So I'll go back to seat one. You also have the opportunity to call first in the second round, and calling first in the second round is another really big advantage. But that weighs you more towards passing. I generally play seats one and three very conservatively. Seat three because I don't have the lead, and seat one because I get to call whatever suit I want in the second round. And there's a big disadvantage to giving the dealer, giving the other team trump, and then letting them short suit themselves. Seat two, I'm reasonably aggressive. I'll say there are a lot of other people in our Euchre Reddit that are a lot more aggressive than me in seat two, and they'll call two trump plus an ace. I'll do that sometimes, but I think the biggest miss that people make from seat two is ordering up the right plus, ordering their partner when they have the right plus any other trump. if they're sitting in seat 2, their partner turns up a heart, they have Jack 9 of hearts. Doesn't matter what their other cards are, pretty much, unless they have all 4 jacks, which I guess they wouldn't in that case. But you need to be calling up right +1 in seat 2 to your partner, because you have a guaranteed trick, you have a reasonable chance at the second one, and you give your partner trump and let them create a void. Yeah, I guess the last seat in terms of first round is the dealer. I like to be really aggressive as dealer because the other team is going to be able to call any trump they want, and we're not going to have any power over that if I pass as the dealer. So I think making sure that you're calling dealer, I'll call with any 3 trump, I'll call with right +1. Anything like that is usually fine. Couple trump and an outside ace is reasonable, but it's about taking the advantage that you have of having the deal and being able to short suit yourself, and coupled with that is the preventative strategy of keeping your opponents from being able to call anything.
All right. Well, to recap steps 1 and 2, eliminating the fear of getting set and learning when to rely on our partner intelligently will help us call more often in round 1. But here's the thing that's really going to change your life and enable new calls you never thought you'd make. The biggest upgrade we can make to our calling range is understanding what is implied when the dealer turns it down in round 1. Now, the low-level default process here is to simply look at your hand again and see if you can make a point in any of the 3 remaining suits. But as next-level players, we're thinking about more than just what's in our hand. Step 3 is understanding and utilizing the concept of next. And when I say next, I'm referring to the suit that is the same color as the suit that was turned down by the dealer. So if spades are turned down, clubs are next. If hearts are turned down, diamonds are next. Now, when the dealer turns it down, you can be pretty darn sure that they don't have strength in that color, because how often are you turning a black suit down when you have a black jack? And the same is true for the dealer's partner. If they have black jacks with any help, they're ordering up black in round 1. So we can weaponize this information by calling the next suit with a much thinner hand than we would have called with in round 1. Imagine the dealer turns down the king of clubs, and you hold 9 and 10 of spades, 2 red aces, and a 9 of clubs. Certainly not a callable hand with clubs up in round 1, and it doesn't look like a callable hand in round 2, but you have to consider the opponent's holdings when they both pass on clubs in round 1. The dealer should never be passing on any club with the jack of clubs in hand, or with the jack of spades plus anything else to give them 3 trump total. The same logic applies to seat 2, who shouldn't be passing if they have either black bower plus any additional help for their partner. So, knowing that nobody wanted clubs, and that the black bowers are likely not in our opponent's hands, we can call spades, or next, on the 9 and 10 alone, knowing that there's less high trump out there going against us, and that our red aces are much more likely to go through, because the reverse of next is true as well. If the enemy team didn't want a black suit, it stands to reason that they are strong in a red one. Now, it's harder to know which red suit they're going to be strong in, but why even let them pick and call their best hand? Similarly, if you're in seat 2 and seat 1 passes in round 2, you should be strongly considering calling either of the reverse next suits, as your partner is likely stronger in them than they are in next. But simply by thinking about the suits this way can help us complete our mental picture of who is likely to hold what at the table, and that allows us to make more calls more intelligently, and sometimes even call it for our partner with little in our hand, guessing that all the strength is in theirs. What are your thoughts on this powerful tool, Mittens?
So I think a lot of people learn Euchre, and when they're learning calling strategy, they are taught 3 trump. 3 trump is a calling hand, or the right +1 trump and an outside ace is a calling hand. Now, we went over the differences in position where sometimes in some positions that might be a calling hand, and then in other positions it wouldn't be. But as far as next goes, people look at a hand and they think, I have maybe two tricks. Often that is not enough for someone to feel like they should be calling. Um, but next is so massive because it tells you a ton of information about what other people's hands are. And Euchre is a game, we've talked about it before, of high variance and really thin margins for playing a winning game. And so any information that we have needs to be utilized, and next is going to be the biggest concept in terms of that information that we can use consistently. So seat one, as I was talking about earlier, seat one, you get to call first in the second round. So like you said, if they turn down black, they turn down a spade, and you have a couple clubs in your hand and an outside ace without, any other big cards, that is more than good enough to be calling next. I will say it's easy to sort of give next too much credit sometimes. What it tells you is specifically about the jacks. It doesn't tell you about the other black suit. So if the dealer turns down spades, that doesn't mean that they couldn't have a bunch of clubs in their hand, but it does mean that they're a lot less likely to have either the jack of spades or the jack of clubs in their hand. Now, it's so doing that, if those jacks are less likely to be in your opponent's hand, then they are by default slightly more likely to be in your partner's hand or buried. Um, Either way, it gives you a big advantage in calling the second round. And yeah, I think Euchre, Ohio has as its like baseline for calling next, or calling reverse next in seat two as king nine of trump plus an outside ace. It's a good baseline. I think there's more that goes into it. There are your other cards. If you have, good cards in the other suits, you might be more inclined to pass because you can cover every suit and probably take a trick no matter what's called. So there's not as much need to prevent the other team from calling. If you're in C1, you don't want to give C2 the opportunity. If you are really weak in those other suits, if you have an okay hand in next in seat one, but you have a terrible hand in reverse next, which seat two is now more likely to be calling, that should incentivize you more to call and call a little thinner, because the implication is that your opponents are more likely to have a better hand in reverse next, and you don't have anything in reverse next, and so you're far worse off in terms of your ability to defend. And sometimes offense is the best defense. And so calling next, calling and hoping that knowing that your partner is more likely to have one of those jacks, is, it doesn't work every time, but it's enough to give you an edge in calling, and it's going to give you a really important edge over a long period of time.
Yeah, we can go super deep on next and get really granular with the examples, but really the best way to learn is by experimenting. Use the concept of next in round two, think about your position at the table in round one, and give yourself permission to call aggressively and get set occasionally. You will be shocked at what you can get away with and how many more games you'll win simply by controlling them. Any closing thoughts on getting players out of their shells and calling more often?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit it. You need to be just calling. People pass so much, especially in casual games. And we obviously play on the Euchre 3D app. It's you can play on single player if you don't want like the social ramifications, of someone saying no way to you. And yeah, play on single player, play against a computer, and utilize those concepts, because yeah, the computer isn't going to yell at you. But yeah, and I think turning off if someone is getting upset with you, there's a strategy that everybody in Euchre seems to be a game that maybe more than any other game that I think I've played is a game where everybody thinks that they know how to play Euchre the right way. And you're probably going to piss someone off no matter what you do. And it might as well be by using good strategy and statistically viable, significant strategy.
Amen to that. All right, well, that's it for this episode. Thanks for tuning in, folks, and we'll catch you on the next time on Table Talk Toolbox.